Welcome to Thriving Entrepreneur with your host, Steve Kidd, third-generation minister and 30-year business coach. Listen in as amazing, world-changing authors, speakers, and coaches share their struggles and victories. And hear from best-selling authors' insight into how you too can live your life as a thriving entrepreneur.
This is Steve. Welcome to Thriving Entrepreneur. Thanks for being with us here today. We've got a fun special show. Every once in a while I like to do these with you where I basically don't have any commercials. I'm going to talk for just a few seconds in between each of the clips just to kind of transfer between the two of them. But I've got some really amazing guests today. And we just really want to talk to you about some really cool innovations that are happening out there in the world to hopefully help you see some visions that other people have that are maybe really different from what you're looking at, and help you be able to then see your own vision and to thrive in your own space, whatever that might be, that you can really truly see it and learn and love and grow and live as a thriving entrepreneur. I so badly want that for you. I hope you will find some inspiration from our guests and that you'll enjoy this format where we do it without commercials. With that said, let's jump right in to our first guest here on Thriving Entrepreneur. Join me in welcoming Seth Radwell. Hey, Seth, how you doing today?
Terrific. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here with us. First off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Sure. My entire career, Steve, has been in business. I have been fortunate to have a wonderful career mostly in marketing and consumer brands. I most recently was CEO of Proactive, which was the leading acne brand for skincare in the US. And before that, I led many other consumer brands. But I made a transition about 5 years ago to do research, which led to a best-selling award-winning book called American Schism, which came out about a year and a half ago.
Oh, do tell us more about that. That's interesting.
Sure. So the book is an investigative tracing of the history of our divisions in the country, in the U.S. And it did win the International Book Award last year. What happened, in terms of my journey, I had a wonderful career, as I mentioned, but I increasingly became disturbed at the degree to which our public discourse had collapsed in the U.S. And I observed over the last couple of years how anger and rancor and acrimony had crowded out reason in our debate. And it wasn't only as a citizen that I observed that, Steve, but I also watched as my fellow peers, CEOs, C-level people, were increasingly afraid to engage. They put their heads in the sand for fear of being canceled or bringing on the wrath of some group. And I thought to myself, well, if our political discourse has collapsed and if private sector leaders won't engage, we are in bad shape. We have a very small chance of handing off or bestowing a democratic republic to our kids. And so that's when I started doing research, which led to the book. And what I do now is work in a nonpartisan way to try to help advance and protect and reform our democracy.
Okay, so let's dive right into it. I mean, there are so many great divides. I mean, I even heard the other day that there are people that will refuse to have Christmas or Thanksgiving with family members if they have different political beliefs. So how do we even begin to create conversations with people, who won't even be in the same building with people who disagree with them?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the same thing that many of us have noticed, and it's really a tragedy in my view, because my whole career I've been engaged with people of different political opinions and perspectives, and I found that very rewarding. And there's been a complete loss of respect for other points of view and an inability to listen. So let me answer your question. The first thing that I believe, and is part of the thesis of American Schism, is that history can act as a salve for our wounds if only we'd apply it. Meaning that our history has a lot of clues about how over many decades of division, how at times we've been able to move forward and make progress, and at other times we've not abandoned that approach and we've had terrible violence. And my fear is that, of course, we're heading into one of those periods of violence. So history can tell us a lot. In fact, in the book, what I show is, after doing this tracing back to the original American schism, which happened after our founding, I show that over our history, we have developed a secret sauce, a magic formula that allows us to move forward even when we're divided. And today, in fact, because of the structure of incentives in various industries, which I could talk more about, we've abandoned that secret sauce, that magic formula. And so in the book, I also describe ways to fix it. And I think there are two overall categories of change. The first one are directly what you mentioned, a mindset change. We have to completely change the way we talk to each other. The entire dialogue today that's preventing families from sitting down at Thanksgiving is because it's been couched in an amygdala-driven emotional conversation that's more representative of how people root for sports teams than in discussing problems. And that approach to the dialogue of attacking the other party, of seeing everything as good or bad or evil and good, that's not helpful. So I do a lot of work today with groups like Braver Angels and others trying to get American citizens to have a different type of conversation. That's number one. The other thing I could talk about is I work on various structural changes that I think need to happen for us to fix our democratic system. And those are things like open primary. They're all nonpartisan. There are things about allowing more people to be involved in the process, like open primaries, ranked choice voting, term limits, et cetera. So those are the two things that I believe we need to address if we're going to change it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, there's so much in that. And sometimes it feels a little overwhelming.
Yes.
How do we take the first step with the people that are in our own lives to be able to move in the direction you're suggesting?
Well, so if we start with the mindset side and how we relate to people, we have to really be willing to recognize that this whole demonization, this us versus them, which unfortunately I think has become a major political tool, is not productive. It's counterproductive. So we have to be willing to throw that away and agree that there are four elements of that, I think. Let me characterize what the four elements of throwing that old formula away. By the way, before I tell, this is what I call the secret sauce. Before I tell you that, I want your listeners to know that it's not their fault that they've fallen into this demonization. The entire political industry in our country and the media have both adopted this because political electives of both parties have realized that the way to mobilize voters is not to persuade them with rational issues, but to push their buttons to get them to the polls. So all elected officials do is try to simmer these tensions, these angers. And at the same time, our media model, which incentivizes getting eyeballs, getting audiences, realizes that sensationalism and anger and emotions are what captures audience, not facts or reason. So we're all sitting in this world where the incentive structures are misaligned for the secret sauce. Now to go back to your question, what Americans need to do is, number one, the first thing we have to realize is that discussions about policy are not discussions about sports teams. They need to be grounded in an empirical framework, the framework of the Enlightenment, where data matters, and the data and the truth is not something that's secondary, but has to drive the conversation and balance and not let the emotions get out of hand. So that's what I call the empirical framework. Too much of today's discussion about issues has abandoned the pursuit of truth, which is one of the reasons, by the way, we've been so successful as a civilization for the last 250 years. I can talk more about that. So that's number one. Number two is recognizing that to get to better solutions, it requires what I call deep empathetic listening. That other points of view come from a certain place that are valid and need to be understood. And I'm not talking about listening the way, through Twitter or through sound bites. I'm talking about listening the way we used to do when I was in school in debate club, where we'd have to really understand another position and argue for it and make the case for it, with a logical argument. That's the kind of listening I'm talking about. And then the third component is recognizing that we can't let perfection be the enemy of the good. And what I mean by that is that any pragmatic solution to a policy problem invariably involves compromise and concessions and recognizing that you're not going to get what you want. And I can give many examples of this, but the most recent one from this week is that once again, a comprehensive proposal to address the crisis at the border was not adopted for political reasons, even though, while not perfect, this proposal had many good things about it. This is the fourth time in immigration that, because of political perfection or political ideology, we abandoned a comprehensive solution, even though it was maybe imperfect. It had a lot of good things because, of course, immigration is a complex problem. So those are the three elements. I'm happy to go into more detail. I know we have limited time. I would encourage your listeners, if they're interested, to read American Schism or take a look at it. I'd be happy to send them a copy if they don't have it. And I'm really working on this with something that I think is a really important drive, because I'm very passionate about the need for our kids to live in a wonderful open society like I grew up in.
So what are your plans? I mean, you have a best-selling book, a great message, and something that the world really definitely needs. Are you all in on that? Is that what you're doing these days, or is it kind of something you're doing along with what you do in work life, or where are you going at this point?
Well, great question. I originally thought it was going to be an abandonment of my career temporarily, that I would get involved in this research and publish this book and go back to being a CEO. I found I've been doing this since 2019 when I started the research, and I found it so compelling that I'm doing this full time now. To answer your question, I have two primary focal points. As a former CEO, the first audience I try to speak to frequently are business leaders, private sector leaders, C-level people who are afraid to engage on this because they're part of what I call the frustrated majority. They think that they're going to be canceled, or it's too dangerous to in today's environment to speak out. And I address business leaders all the time and try to show them that, number one, the system is not going to fix itself. It needs leadership. So if they stay on the sidelines, we're sure to lose our democracy. Number two, they can engage in ways that are not so risky, that they can engage without touching the third rail. And I show them ways to do this. Many of the things I connect business people with are things like open primaries, election reform. I mean, most listeners and business people don't know that the way our system is set up today, 8% of the electorate is responsible for 85% of the seats in Congress. Only 8%. And that's because all the districts are gerrymandered to be safe. And so what counts is the primary, and very few people vote in the primary because mostly they're closed. So no independents can vote. Anyway, the system is has become very poorly designed. Another example could be ranked choice voting, which is a much better way of voting. Don't have the time to go into it today. But if you look at what's happened at the state level, like, for example, in Alaska now has a very functional assembly and Senate because they've adopted these changes in how they vote. So what I try to tell business people is you can make a difference. You don't have to be partisan. You can get engaged without touching the third rail. The second set of my activities are with young people. I just gave a talk at Wofford College last week, and I try to speak to young people about not to get apathetic or lose hope that they can get in. It's important that they engage and take part and cherish our democracy, but that they need to do so with a different mindset than what you see in media today. So those are the two things I work on.
I love that. So for somebody that wants to go deeper with you, how can they get in contact with you?
So if they go to SethDavidRadwell.com, SethDavidRadwell.com, they can email me. They can find out about my book. But I'd love to hear from your listeners. I think this is something that we've all got to care about, because I do believe that and my research shows that the majority of Americans, 70% or more, do believe that our current political discourse is counterproductive. and they're searching for a better way. So in other words, we have a frustrated majority. These people are in the majority, but they feel like they're in the minority because the extremes on both sides, extremes on the left and the right, shout the loudest and get the most airtime. So what we need to do as citizens who want to find a better way, we need to wrestle the gavel back from the lunatics on the left and right extremes who are running the asylum.
I absolutely love that. So give us that URL one more time, Seth.
It's Seth, S-E-T-H, David Radwell, R-A-D-W-E-L-L, all one word, .com.
Well, I do encourage everybody, get the book, American Schism, reach out to Seth and see what more you could do to help make things even better here in our country and elsewhere. Seth, thanks so much for being with us here on the show today.
Steve, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Like I said, I'm not going to say much. I just want you to take what this guest just said and to really think about it and to think, what is the vision for who you can be? And if this inspires you about what they're doing and you want to participate in that too, that'd be great too. But more than anything, how can I use this to help me be a thriving entrepreneur? Here's the next guest. Join me in welcoming Vikram Chalan. How are you today, Vikram?
Great, Steve. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing really good, thanks. First off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think of myself as a serial entrepreneur and a dad and a meditator and a hiker and a bunch of other things. We all have multiple personality, but I think for the context of this interview, serial entrepreneur, I'm doing my third startup now, and I'm in the Seattle area, and I love building startups.
That's amazing. What is your favorite part about building a startup?
My favorite part is actually working with a great team. So I think finding a right set of people that you can work with, you can accomplish anything you want. So of course, the other part is solving challenges for the customers and building some technology, applying creativity, all of that stuff. But I think for me, it's working with amazing people.
So is there an area of startups that you prefer working in, like types of products or services?
Yes. So I've always worked around the field of data, and now recently has been AI. So my latest startup is focused on using AI for video creation, whether it's starting from text and creating video from that, or whether it's starting from an existing video and being able to edit it easily with AI and with text. So it's always been around data and AI and machine learning and all that area of technology.
So what is the one thing that when you're going to start up a next company and the people that you're working with that you wish they knew before you get started, that you often have to teach them before you can really get the ball rolling?
So I think one of the things I realized is sometimes being too entrenched in a field can be a disadvantage. So when you're starting out, you want a team of generalists, people who can take up anything and who have this desire to learn and absorb any new field, because I call it growth mindset. You've probably seen books about that. But the growth mindset has two big advantages. One is you don't know what the upper limits of any technology is. So you can basically say, I can do anything here. You don't realize what the upper limits are. If somebody is too entrenched in that field, they're like, I can't do this because of ABC. But if somebody's coming new, they can completely look at it at a fresh perspective and say, I don't know the upper limits. But the second thing is actually a big advantage is if you're not entrenched in a field and you're coming in new, you have a curiosity about learning and growing and becoming the best in that field. So to me, when I hire an early team, it's all about, okay, who can grow with me while we learn this new area. And as your company takes off, then you can hire specialists and bring the experts that you need in a particular area.
I love that. A lot of people struggle with, the early funding, and that can often become the determining factor of whether a product really gets off the ground or not. Is there some ways that are more effective than others to be able to really begin to fund, your startup company?
Yeah, funding is one of the biggest challenges, as you've heard from others as well. And so my advice and kind of things that I've done in the past is, don't be too reliant on outside funding. Start with as much as you can, bootstrapping, not paying yourself much, not trying to get things done as scrappily as possible, and potentially, getting friends and families involved and their funding involved. So as far as you can take it, in a small amount of capital is the right way to start any business. And then outside investors usually look for traction. So after you've shown traction in customers and users, in whatever other metric you're trying to project, people will get interested. So do the initial stage yourself as scrappily as you can. And once you start seeing consumption, you'll get outside investors, you'll get interest in it.
I really love that. So, what is the downside to having an idea and just starting the company yourself versus, become a franchiser or just joining somebody else's company or those kind of things?
So yeah, I mean, that's actually a common choice that a lot of people who want to be an entrepreneur face is okay, should I do it myself? Should I defy all the odds? Because the odds of a startup being successful are pretty low, and so you're taking chances, you're taking huge risk, but rewards don't come without. So you have to kind of answer this for yourself. Is like, okay, is this problem something that I'm really excited about, or am I not? I can't work for anyone else, so I have to do it myself. Or this problem is something that nobody else is going to solve in the world because I'm so uniquely well positioned to it. So once you kind of ask those kind of questions to yourself, and you come up with a solid, yes, I'm the person to do it, and I'm the person to take this idea, and I can't imagine myself working for anybody else, then you kind of start building it. Now, whether you start building something from scratch or whether you franchise somebody else's idea, that's another decision that you'll have to make, again, depending on your passion and interest and what your unique skill sets are. So I feel like, there's that kind of choice every entrepreneur will make in the very beginning is, okay, do I want to continue working for somebody, or do I want to do it myself? And there's a lot of factors that go into the decision. I'm not sure that it's like an easy yes or no thing.
I love that. So, talk to me about the kind of people you said, generalists. Do you come up with the idea and then put the people together with you, or are you kind of looking for people who want help creating their startup? Which do you prefer?
Either, because I feel like, one, it's really hard to build a startup by yourself. So ideally you have a team of co-founders, and so that to me is a very important thing. Anyway, I like working with people, so that it also becomes very important from my perspective. But I feel like even from investors' perspective, even from the success of the company perspective, having having a team, having co-founders is important. Now, it could be either scenario: you have the idea and you try to convince a few other people, and a minimal team that you need in a startup. And I heard this somewhere else. I don't know where, but I really like this. You need three products. You need a hacker, you need a hustler, and you need a visionary. Now, it's very rare that one person can be all three. So usually it'll be like, three people or two people, but those three roles have to be there. There has to be a person with the vision. Sometimes it might be me. I have the vision that I want to pursue it. Sometimes another person I meet has the vision. And then you need the hacker, the coder, the person who can build all this stuff. And then you need the hustler, the sales guy. And the hustler and visionary can sometimes be the same. Sometimes, usually it's the hustler and hacker is usually two different people.
Yeah, I love that. So, are you currently taking pitches from people or meetings with people who have great ideas that would love to have you be part of their team?
Right now, I'm busy with my current startup, so I'm not looking to get involved. But I'm happy to advise anyone who has ideas and is looking for, whether it's investment advice or go-to-market advice or technology advice. I'm happy to talk to anyone in your audience and say, hey, yes, this looks great, pursue it, or this is how you might think about it. So yeah, happy to do that. And but right now I'm busy with my with running my startup and building it up.
Absolutely, that makes total sense. Do you have any classes for it, or is it just direct one-on-one advice that you give people?
I usually do one-on-one, and I'm pretty open on LinkedIn and so on, so people can reach out and say, hey, I'm happy to help out as much as I can.
That's awesome. So tell us, how can we connect with you on LinkedIn?
So yeah, my name is Vikram Chalana, so you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can even look up my company, Pictory.ai. It's an AI-based video making and video editing software, and yeah, so that's, if you find Vikram at Pictory.ai, that's my email address too.
And that's spelled Vikramchalana. Well, Vikram, before I let you go, give us some words of encouragement about taking the idea that we have and running with it and making a company out of it.
I think the key words that I love the Nike slogan, just do it, because that's kind of the key thing. Sometimes you can ruminate on an idea, you can think about it all the time. Obviously, you have to do some of that. So you have to let an idea gestate and mature in your head. But great products are never made in your head or in the lab. Great products are always made in the market. So you just have to get it out there and get people using your product, service, whatever you're thinking, and then refine, iterate. So just do it is my main piece of advice.
Perfect. I love that. Well, Vikram, I really appreciate you spending some time with us here on the show today.
Great. Thank you, Steve. It was a pleasure.
If you haven't checked out Pictory yet, you really should. It has some amazing things that you can do with both image and especially video creation. I hope you will check it out. But I hope that also helps you get a powerful vision for some of the cool things that you are doing or that you could be doing, and how you too can live as a thriving entrepreneur. And with that said, we're going to jump right in to our very next guest. Join me in welcoming Brian Beckham. Hey, Brian, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here with us. Tell us first a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
That's a broad question. I guess I would identify as a father and husband first. I'm a lawyer, been a lawyer for over 20 years. I own my own law firm, been running my own law firm for 20 years. Also a computer scientist and a philosopher. And I run my own podcast on leadership. So that's kind of the high level summary.
So, talk to us about your podcast on leadership. What kind of guests or conversations do you have?
It's been an awesome experience. I started this, it's called Lessons from Leaders with Brian Beckham. And I started the podcast during quarantine, believe it or not. I was sitting around like a lot of us, looking at screens all day long, all night long. I don't know if you remember back then, it seems like forever ago, but everybody was fussing and fighting and there was a lot of negativity. And I just kind of was like, you know what? I know a lot of really, really interesting people, a lot of very successful people, a lot of people that have done some cool things. So I'm gonna start a podcast and I'm just gonna start interviewing people I know. So I've had politicians, I've had a bunch of military war hero types, generals and colonels. I had a Thunderbirds pilot on. I've had New York Times best-selling authors on. It's a wide variety of people. And I tell you what, Steve, one of my theories has been, and I think the podcast has proven this, the leaders we see oftentimes on the news and on TV, I think a lot of us are fairly disappointed in the leadership abilities, but that's not who runs the country on a day-to-day basis. Like, it's the leaders in your community and the leaders that fly under the radar a little bit that are really pushing things forward. I'll give you a good example of that. I interviewed a friend of mine who's the district attorney in a small Texas town. This was right about the time when the George Floyd thing happened. And this guy, who a lot of people, I think, if they saw him wearing a cowboy hat and talking with a strong Texas accent, and he's from a southern town, would think he had a certain view. But he started a program, which is basically a way for the minority community to judge how the police are doing. It's like a grand jury for police conduct in this little small town. And it's one of the most, I don't want to say progressive because that has political connotations. It's one of the most intelligent, forward-thinking things I've ever heard from a law enforcement person. And it's somebody that you don't see about on national TV on Fox News or CBS, but everybody in Dusty Boyd's area knows exactly who he is. So the idea is to focus on positive leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of times leaders get bad raps because of bad leaders. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. And, I tell people Hitler was a very good leader if you define that term as being able to get people to do things. And so there's a lot of very bad leaders around that they're able to persuade people to do things, but they're the wrong things. And so I wanted to focus more on positive leadership. I have a theory, Steve, that a lot of what we see on TV that makes us think that everybody is bitterly divided politically and that the country is about to be torn in two and everything is going to hell in a handbasket. I actually believe that's largely bullshit, pardon my French. I think that's a fictional creation of a small group of people that make a lot of money, like billions of dollars, making everybody mad at each other. I think actually most people, when you get to know them, sit down with them face to face, kind of want the same things. And so that's the message that I want to get through with my podcast, that, we're all in this together and most of us kind of want the same thing.
I love that approach to it because so often all we hear, I mean, it's a little better than it was during COVID, but then again, I hope all of us are a little more busy than we were in COVID. And so we don't have to listen to as much news as we did. But, all we ever hear is, this side's wrong or, that side's wrong. And it doesn't really matter what we believe in. Everybody has got us, or is at least trying to convince us that, the other guys are just completely evil and, they even do bring up sometimes Hitler and the Nazis.
Have you ever thought about the fact that one of the largest news channels in our country is not owned by an American citizen? It's owned by an Australian yellow journalist. And we are enriching him by watching. Every time we watch, and it's not just him, it's a lot of the other channels. But how bizarre is it that we allow people that do not have anything other than their own financial self-interest in mind to manipulate the way we see the world. I'll give you another good example of that. Whatever you think of Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, I don't think it's healthy that one person gets to dictate to billions of people what kind of news they see. I mean, what kind of strange world do we live in where a billionaire with social issues gets to buy a company and dictate what we all watch and listen to? It's just kind of a strange situation. And I think sometimes we accept that at face value. And I'm here to tell everybody it doesn't have to be that way.
So let's give people a positive solution. I mean, there's so many of them, but what's one thing that everybody could do today to, be better leaders, make the world a better place?
Meditate. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but I think so. Here was probably I'm 51 years old now. Probably one of the biggest breakthroughs I've ever had in my life was learning about cognitive biases. And one of the punchlines, so everybody has cognitive biases. And the funny thing is most people think everybody else has cognitive biases and they don't have them. So being self-aware enough to know that you're being manipulated, I think is a very, very, very important character trait. As a matter of fact, Steve, I think we're heading very quickly to a point where some large percentage of our population has no free agency because they don't realize they're being manipulated, and they don't realize that all the things that are coming out of their mouth and all the thoughts that are going into their head are being put there by somebody else. I think there is another large percentage of the population that realizes that we're being manipulated. I mean, think about this, Steve. As a computer scientist, this is very important to me, but Google spends billions and billions of dollars to hire psychologists and engineers and people to manipulate your brain. We have no chance as individuals if we let them do that. It's the same thing with Facebook. When you get a message, a notification on your phone that says somebody tagged you in a photo, have you ever noticed they don't show you the photo? They don't do that because psychologically it's almost impossible when somebody says there's a photo of you not to look at it. So I think the meta skill is being self-aware enough to know that not only does everybody else have cognitive biases, but we do too. And the funny thing about it is, Steve, this is a little bit of a mind twister, but Danny Kahneman and Tversky, the scientists that really were on the cutting edge of discovering all these cognitive biases, one thing they discovered was people that knew about cognitive biases, people that were educated about cognitive biases, were even more subject to cognitive bias themselves. And so you have to be super, super cautious, because what ends up happening is you'll start reading about, for example, confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the idea that you go out and seek out information that confirms what you already believe. Everybody is susceptible to it, whether you know about it or not. And so I think just a general raising of the collective self-awareness, the collective consciousness, whatever you want to call it, is probably one of the most important things we're looking at. Because, again, the way technology is going, our self-awareness is being manipulated literally on an hourly basis.
Makes total sense. So for you, what are the kind of things that you're doing that we could be a part of?
So probably the number one thing for just the general listener is the podcast. Like I said, I'm really proud of it. It's completely focused on positive leadership. I've got some unbelievable guests on there, some people that will just absolutely blow you away. And then I tell people, I say, hopefully you don't need my services as a lawyer, but if you do, the law firm is vbattorneys.com. That's V as in Victor, B as in Brian, attorneys.com, VB Attorneys. And if you type that in, we got our website and our social media, we're everywhere.
I love that. Well, before I let you go, give us a few words of encouragement about being a better leader.
So the number one thing that I've learned about leadership and doing almost 100 episodes now is there's an incredible amount of leaders out there. Like, again, referring back to what I said earlier, sometimes it's easy to get a little depressed or maybe a little negative or maybe a little cynical when you see the types of leadership we see on TV. Most of these people are children, or they're not much better than children in terms of the maturity and the leadership ability. But that's not really who's running the show. It's the mom who runs the PTA. It's the dad who's coaching 4 different sports teams. It's the small town district attorney who's putting in programs to help the minority community have a better relationship with the police department. There's way more of us than there are of them, and that's the good news. There's more good people than there are bad people.
I love that message. Thanks for bringing that to us today. Brian, thanks so much for being with us here on the show today.
You're welcome, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
The law is there for so many things, but among them is the ability for you to be able to protect the powerful vision that you have. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is to really truly protect yourself from the things that you can't think of just as much as the things that you can. And in all of that, you have this powerful vision. You show up as the best version of yourself. And just like Brian, you do the things that only you can do. Let's join our next guest. Join me in welcoming Angela Duncan. Hey, Angela, how you doing?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks so much for being here with us. Start us off by telling us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Yeah, so I go very far back, and I like to tell people that I am a survivor of childhood abuse and poverty. And the reason why I start with that story is because I teach about money and how to create income. And I want people to know it doesn't matter where you started. It matters what action you're going to take today.
Oh, I love that. Because some of us all had some really bad starts, but that doesn't have any bearing on where we can go. That's cool. So talk to us a little bit about how we can go from nothing to the amazing somethings that we were meant to be.
Yeah, so my journey started very early. I moved out of the house when I was 18, and I went on this journey, and I wanted to learn more about this tool that we call money. And so for me, I needed to be a student. And very early on, I made a lot of horrible investing decisions. I've built and scaled and exited several companies since then. So I've learned a lot along the way, 25 plus years of studying money and business. And I just love being an entrepreneur. I love the freedom that it provides, but I also love teaching other people how to use this tool we call money in your business so that we can create more income together for your business, but in a fashion that a lot of people are currently not using.
Oh, well, you've teased us really good. Now tell us, what is the way that people aren't usually using that can serve us?
Yeah, so it's on this platform that we are on right now. It's called podcasting. And while it's been around for quite some time, a lot of people still use it for an audio, meaning they are tuning into podcasts and they think it's too hard, too difficult. I don't have time to create my own podcast. And they don't understand how podcasting can really change their business. Over 3.5 million podcasts are out there with 1.5 million people listening. So imagine creating a business model through podcasting that you can use without spending a ton of money or a ton of time to create more business in your income. And so that's what I love to teach. Obviously, you're a podcaster, a podcast host. You've been doing this for a little bit, so you understand how to use podcasting to help grow income for your business.
Now, I want to jump into that. I do need to say, for the sake of these syndicators, they do really get frustrated when I refer to radio stations as podcasts. But yes, we are also available in podcast format. So anyway, talk to us, though, about it. It's such a great medium. What are some of the ways that people can make money that they probably don't even know they could?
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that too, because I've talked to a lot of people in radio and they're really incorporating more shows like this because they know that this is going to be the future. So there are many ways that you can create income from podcasts. Obviously, I'm a guest on your show. And so if I want to share this podcast with my own audience, then I'm showing them that I'm an expert in my field. I'm showing them that I am out there, I'm teaching the information, I'm utilizing this platform so that I can create more business by being the expert in my field. A lot of people think podcasting is super difficult, but it's not. And so what I like to do is make it very simple. We go with you step by step so that you can launch successfully your own program on whatever platform that you choose so that you can give more information to your audience. The more that they consume that information and listen to you, the more of an expert you are in their eyes. And it's so much easier when they need your help that they've already seen you as the expert. You're not having to pitch yourself, because for me as a female, I don't like pitching. It's so salesy. And for me, I want to build relationships first. And the way that you build relationships through this medium is by providing so much free information that the person listening already views you as the expert. So when they need you, they're coming to you because they know that you're going to solve whatever problem that it is that they have, which is your business.
So what kind of things can we do so that they remember how to get a hold of us after, because you hear somebody and you're like, what was that thing? So how can we help stick in their minds?
I know not everyone is like me. I keep a notepad and a pen in my car because I am an avid, podcast and radio listener. So if I hear something, I'm jotting it down. But we have these things called smartphones and they're in our hand constantly. So if you're on someone else's podcast, a great tip I like to tell you is to provide them with your social media. It's so much easier for someone to find you on social media, follow you, and then again, keep listening to your content because you're the expert in your field. So if you are going to be on someone's podcast, make sure you're sharing, how do I reach you? Don't give them a long website. They're not going to remember that, but just give them your social media. And that way they can follow you and they can reach out to you that way. But as a person on social media, make sure you're checking your messages too, because there are spam folders. And I have seen people reach out to me wanting to hire me for their business, but then I didn't see the message because it's in the spam folder. So making sure that you're checking that folder is very important as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. So, a person is like, all right, Angela, I'm gonna go out as a speaker. Um, what do I talk about?
Right. So think about, what do people ask you? What are the questions that your friends, your family are constantly asking you? Because a lot of times we think what we know is common sense. It's really not. I have people asking me money questions and podcast questions all the time. And for me, it seems like it's common sense. So I can just, blurt it out, whatever it is that they're asking questions about. So start to take an internal journal, whether you're going to write that down or use your smartphone to take those notes. What are people asking you about? And that's really your area of expertise. Hopefully it's also your business because that's what you're teaching other people. But start to use the platform and record just a couple solo podcasts to begin. Who are you? What do you want to do? What is your mission? How do you help people? And how are you an expert? And give real life stories. People love stories. I love hearing stories, and they can connect to you when you're sharing those stories. So really important for you to spend your time wisely. If you're going to use this platform, become the expert in your field, share the stories with your audience so that they have a better way to connect with you as a person. Because if you're listening to this in your car and you're just driving along, it's really hard to get to know the person on the other side. So sharing those personal stories is how they're going to connect and relate to you. So that's great information, at least to start off on your journey for this platform as well.
A lot of people, because we all get in our heads and then we question everything that we know. They say, well, I don't really have anything that's that unique or special to share with people. How does a person discover what's their cool thing?
What are you currently listening to? What are you watching? What is your business? These are all things that you already know. You just haven't spent the time to flex your muscle, which is using the platforms and speaking about it. Now, I'm a true introvert. I love this platform because I'm able to talk to a camera and it's less salesy. It can be uncomfortable to start, but once you start doing it for a little bit, then it becomes more comfortable. One of the things that one of my clients had did to help prepare to launch their own podcast was to go live on Instagram first, because it helps you to practice to talk to a camera, to get in the habit of having a conversation without necessarily someone on the other side watching you, but knowing that your audience is out there and having them participate, like, what questions do you want to know about me? And those could be some key topics that you're going to use on your own shows when people are asking you topics or when they're asking you questions. Jot down what they're asking you, because if you're answering it and it just feels natural for you and it's something that you already know, those are topics that you're going to utilize in launching your own podcast.
I love that. I always say, what is the thing that when you start talking about it, your children roll their eyes? Such a great clue as to what you talk a lot about.
Very true. And you don't recognize it most times, right? So that's a good visual for people to think about. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you've been through so many things. You started off in a, poor state in life, and you've built, gigantic companies. What would you say was the secret? I mean, what did you do that other people didn't do? I mean, there's a lot of people that were in poverty that are still in it. What was different?
Yeah, I'm a student. I'm going to be a student forever. The first advice that I gave in my book, Empower Your Money, was to invest in yourself first. So if you truly want to learn about something, we're in an era where there's just so much free information. I mean, we've got this platform, radio, podcast, you have YouTube, and you don't have to pay to listen to it. So spend the time to invest in your own education. Figure it out. What is it that you want to learn more about? If it's going to be to create your own show, then go on YouTube and find people who have done it before. Get some free information first, and then hire an expert to help you in the things that you don't know. And it's truly important for you to have a mentor or an expert, just like you, Steve. I know you help your clients, in your expertise of books and writing, and now obviously on this platform too. It's so important to have an expert with you side by side, because they've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and you kind of want to avoid those, right? Time is our most valuable asset, so why not learn from them, from their mistakes, so you don't make them, and then you can just get to your goal and accomplish your goal so much quicker, because you do have that expert on your side to teach you all of the things that you need to know to be successful in that you're wanting to learn.
I love that. And I'm looking at your book here, Empower Your Money, 101 Simple Ways for Female Entrepreneurs to Create Financial Freedom. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've read a lot of books about money and creating income in the years that I've been studying personal finance. And what I find and what I hear from a lot of people who just don't know where to start is that it seems overwhelming. And they just wanted something simple, that they didn't need to pull out a dictionary or their phone to Google a term because they didn't know what that looked like, right? So I wanted to put a book together that gave you 101 action items that you could walk away with today so that you can implement it in your life. And they're just simple things. My first one I already talked about was investing in your own education. I have things in there like a no spend day if you're really trying to, conquer debt or control your finances. It's just little things like that you may already know, but when you read it and then you connect the heart with the mind, then it just is going to help you to accomplish whatever your goal is that you're working on. So I wanted to make something super simple for people just to read and to be able to implement with those action items right away. So it wasn't super complicated. And that was, something that was on my heart for a long time. Being that I did grow up in poverty and abuse, I often think about like my mom. If she had better financial education, right? If she knew more about business and entrepreneurship, then maybe she wouldn't have stayed in that relationship. And maybe I wouldn't have had to endure what I did because of her lack of education. So when I think about, entrepreneurs or females in general, I want to make sure that they're not stuck. You should never feel like you're stuck in an unhealthy environment because of a lack of education. In today's world, there's education all around you. You can go get my book. You can go to the library and check out books for free. Like I said, YouTube, radio, podcasting, all of those are free avenues for you. But you do have to take the action to go seek out that information and spend some time investing in yourself first.
I love that so much. So what kind of people do you like to work with?
Entrepreneurs, really people who are looking to get in front of a new audience or perhaps an unused audience, and they're tired of, Facebook ads or Instagram ads, which can be very random and not paying off for them, right? So we're going to use this platform to make sure that people know that you're an expert, but it also helps you build relationships like you and I now. I know who you are. We're building a relationship together, and perhaps I'm going to be a referral source for you later. So there's so many different things that you have to think about when it comes to podcasting that you can utilize to help grow your business and reach more clients, create more income for your business in a simple platform that maybe maybe only takes an hour a week for you to do. So that's why I love this platform. And it's your way to give back to the community. I truly believe that if you give first, abundance will come later, but you need to come with contribution. And that's what this platform is for. We're just giving so much great information so that someone listening to it can jot it down and then go take action immediately. I mean, this is just incredible, something that we didn't have 30 years ago, right? When we were growing businesses. So just having this platform and being able to give back to the community is really something that I truly enjoy. And I know, I think I went way off topic there, but sometimes that happens when you're talking to a camera.
Yeah, absolutely. No worries. I love it. Sometimes the rabbit trail is better than the whole sermon.
Yes.
So no worries. So talk to us about, you have the book. What other kind of courses do you help or teach people?
Yeah. Am I allowed to give a freebie away to your audience?
Absolutely. We love
All right.
freebies.
I always ask for permission because this is your show and I want to be very respectful of you, your time, and your audience. So if you're thinking that you want to launch your podcast, but you don't know what to do or how to start, and you're not ready to hire a mentor or myself to help you launch it, if you go over to my Instagram, Empower Her Money, send me a message and just type in the word kid, whether you're going to put 2 Ds or 1 D. Hopefully, Steve Kidd has 2 Ds in his name, but message me the word kid, and I'm going to send you a checklist. It's the ultimate podcast launch checklist. It's what I go through with my clients, and I'm going to give it to you for free, step by step, so that you can hopefully avoid some of the mistakes that I made when I launched my podcast.
Oh, I love that. So, you said give people your social media. So give us all of your social media.
Yeah, so TikTok, Instagram, it's Empower Her Money. My podcast is also called Empower Her Money, and those are the best ways to find me. And like I said, just message me the word kid. I'm going to give you that checklist for free that I use for my own clients. That way you can start on your journey, and hopefully I can help you create more income for your business as well.
I love that. Well, before I let you go, give us some words of encouragement that no matter what today might look like in the bank account, that things can be different.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter where you were right before this podcast. If you decided today that you're going to take action and create more income for yourself personally or for your business, there's plenty of ways for you to do it, but you have to take the time to invest in yourself first, because this way you're going to empower and just be incredible and help everyone that's around you because you took the time to take care of yourself first.
I love that. Well, do check out Angela at Empower Her Money. And Angela, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the show today.
Yes, thank you.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's such a powerful phrase that I really want you to remember, so that then when you're pitching from your podcast, on a direct call with somebody, in your social media, any of those things, you can be genuine and authentically yourself, and then really show up in a way that helps the other people, but then also allows them to be able to work with you and do all of that without sounding salesy, without sounding like you're some kind of crazy siding salesperson from the 60s or any of the other things that might come to mind when you think of a pushy salesperson. And you can just simply show up powerfully when you're talking to people. And what a powerful vision that is that you know how great you are, and you then share it with the world, because you are uniquely brilliant. You were created for a purpose, and the world needs you. Absolutely it does. They need you to get a powerful vision, show up with your powerful vision, and share your powerful vision with the world in all the various different ways, like the guests that I had on today are, so that you can live every day of your life as a thriving entrepreneur.
Thanks for listening to Thriving Entrepreneur today. If you want to get your question answered, send an email to questions@wehelpyouthrive.com. We look forward to you joining us again next time.
Hi, my name is Steve Kidd. I am a third-generation minister, an international best-selling author of multiple books, and I help people write, publish, and market their books to bestseller. In fact, there are literally thousands of people that have used the system that I created to be able to write, publish, and market their books, and now they're best-selling authors. And you're next. I just wanted to come on for a minute, say hi to you, tell you a little bit about me, introduce myself, and tell you I know the world is waiting on your message, and I would be so honored to be part of sharing your message with the world. Go to AskSteveKid.com and schedule a time to talk today.